Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of his upcoming fight with Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach says Gervonta wasn't ready to face me in December. Remember that they were originally supposed to fight before this year was out, and they moved it all the way out into 3 months into the coming year. Lamont Roach provided his own justification for why his lightweight title fight with Gervonta "Tank" Davis was pushed back nearly 3 months from December 14th in Houston to March 1st at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. I believe Tank wasn't ready to face me back in December, Roach told Boxing Scene on Tuesday, following a press conference to promote his bout with the WBA title holder, Davis. I honestly don't think he was ready because what would be the reasoning? If it was the venue, we could have gotten another venue. What else could it be? That was the initial reason they gave for moving off that December date. Something to do with the venue. I didn't buy it, and neither does Lamont. A source confirmed that Davis wasn't in position to fight Roach in December, especially after the birth of his son in August when Davis wanted to spend more time with his newborn. Lamont Roach knows Davis well from their amateur days and geographic rivalry. Their matchup is a battle of the Beltway. Encounter with Davis hailing from Baltimore and Roach, born in Washington, D.C., and now living in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. They were frequently sparring partners growing up and fought twice as teenage amateurs, in 2011 with Davis going 2-0. Davis was a different fighter back then and has undergone a dramatic transformation as a professional, according to Roach, who holds the WBA super featherweight title. What's interesting is that he wasn't known as a power puncher as an amateur, Roach said of Davis, who is 30-0 with 28 KOs and is viewed as one of the sport's best finishers. He was more of a boxer, so his evolving into the star that he is, I commend him for the changes he's made to his skill set. Lamont Sr. echoed his son's analysis of Davis as an amateur and marveled at how he's been able to add power to his arsenal. Watching him as a kid to see how he transformed has been interesting because my son was considered more of a power puncher, Roach Sr., who trains his son, told Boxing Scene. If you watch the both of their fights, he put Tank on his back foot, but to watch Tank evolve, he increased his skills as a professional. They're both high IQ fighters in the ring. They both download information pretty quickly in the ring, so you're going to see some pretty high-level stuff March 1st. It's conceivable that between the time Gervonta Davis faced Lamont Roach in the amateurs, when they were basically kids, he would have come into his grown man's strength. That and the matchmaking he has benefited from in the pros. I'm not impressed by any of Gervonta Davis's knockouts. I think he can punch, but I don't think he's as big a puncher as he's made out to be. The matchmaking makes it seem as such. It's a periodic practice for Gervonta Davis to face naturally smaller fighters than he is, like
Cuellar.
Jesus Cuellar, who they moved up from 126 up to 130. Leo Santa Cruz. He wasn't a true 130-pounder. His best weights were below 130. Hector Luis Garcia, who they moved up from 130 up to 135 like they're doing now with Lamont Roach. So when they're not bringing up smaller fighters to fight Gervonta Davis, they're sticking weight stipulations on them, like what they did with Ryan and what they did with Mario. And it's for this reason I don't think he's as big a puncher as he's made out to be. Roach, 25-1 with 1 draw, 10 knockouts, said there's a rematch clause in the contract if he prevails against Davis. Every champion should have a rematch clause, he said. We're fighting for his belt, so I would throw a rematch clause in there too. This bout is a major step up for the 29-year-old Roach, who has never headlined a pay-per-view bout and has campaigned recently at 130, while Davis has remained firmly at lightweight since 2019. That says 2021. That's inaccurate. Gervonta made his lightweight debut in 2019 opposite the ring Yuriorkis Gamboa for a WBA regular title. They have a common opponent in Hector Luis Garcia, who was stopped violently in 2023 by Davis. Roach won the WBA junior lightweight title last November after flooring Garcia in the 12th round and winning a split decision. Despite the difference in experience, Roach was relaxed and genial on Tuesday, even taking Davis's lateness in stride. Davis arrived 4 hours and 28 minutes late to a press conference that was originally scheduled for 1 p.m. on Tuesday, but was rescheduled for 4 p.m. to accommodate Davis's travel issues. Davis arrived on stage to start the presser at 5:28 p.m.
Another sign that Gervonta Davis don't care anymore. He skipped the grand arrivals for the Frank Martin fight, and he arrived close to 5 hours late for the presser for this one.
When he says he wants to retire next year, that lends credence to that notion because you can see he doesn't care. So Lamont Roach will now find himself in the crossfire of a lot of negative comments.
Yeah, he's gonna catch some strays.
And it's not even his fault. But when you bill a fight like this as a box office fight, what do you expect? We got to see this guy fight for free on ProBox right before you decided to fight him.
So why should this cost $80?
By now, I think we all understand that the PBC is operating out of necessity, and what they're doing is tantamount to crowd-funded boxing. Though in an ideal world, a fight like this one would be part of a regular schedule. This would be one of the ones that you give away.
Fighters never want to go backwards on the money, and that needs to change, because not every fight is box office worthy, and not every fight yields the same commercial value.
In an ideal world, you would use a fight like this in the name of a Gervonta Davis to bolster a regular schedule of fights that you're going to get to see Gervonta at no additional charge en route to something bigger afterwards. That would be the ideal way to do it, but things are seldom ever ideal in the world of boxing, and as stated, at this point the PBC is operating out of necessity. I don't think they have a choice.
And even though Gervonta at times sounds illiterate, he can read the writing that's on the wall. The well is drying up. You're running out of safe options, and they are all out of money.
Thus, he wants to retire in the coming year, simultaneously saying that he wants to fight 3 times next year.
We'll see.
Former Showtime Sports president Stephen Espinoza was asked about Gervonta Davis's potential retirement and whether or not he thinks he's serious.
He was at the press conference. He's gone from a Showtime executive to a full-time PBC employee.
Tank versus Roach. I broached to Espinoza, who end of 2023 fought hard to keep Showtime Sports and boxing alive as corporate conglomerate consolidations and launchings continue to shape the arc of the linear to cable to cord cut wireless platform structure. I think it could be a decent, solid fight. I continued, Lamont Roach is a world-class guy. Not a bad choice for an opponent, you know. Though us in media, we do like to talk about things that didn't happen or should have happened. Whatever. I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen this fight being Tank versus Lomachenko. We're not seeing that. But before we get into why that didn't occur, he first took a crack at reacting to Tank Davis saying 2025 will be his last year fighting. If you listen closely, he's hinted at it, said Espinoza. As things wound down at the Barclays, I'm not trying to walk you back, but I think when you've been to the mountaintop, if you're 30, there are ebbs and flows, and sometimes it's sort of like you can see the finish line, and other times you're energized and you're like, I'm going to do this for a long time. And I think Tank's at a point right now where it's sort of like, hey, it's harder and harder to get motivated to get up for it.
When you've been to the mountaintop?
The gaslighting in association with Gervonta Davis's career really is unreal.
He's reached the mountaintop. By beating who, Ryan Garcia?
I don't doubt that last part, though, that Gervonta Davis is struggling to stay motivated, mostly because there are no safe fights anymore. There are no safe choices. There are not a bunch of Ryan Garcia fights out there that will allow you to make that kind of money for minimal risks.
He did say he wants to fight 3 times next year.
But he also seems to have ruled out a Shakur Stevenson fight, which would get him a handsome Saudi-sized purse. So who would he fight 3 times next year? Well, one is Lamont Roach.
The one we know of. Another possible opponent could be Isaac Cruz. If Isaac makes it past Angel Fierro on the undercard of Benavidez versus Morrell, I could see him fighting Gervonta again.
And the third?
That's assuming there is a third.
He made sense, though. Gervonta Davis is 30. He's been fighting as a pro since 2013 and as an amateur on the streets and in the gyms since he was 5. If he seems or is truly weary about the fight game, he's earned that. You got little nagging physical things, the rep for PBC, and Al Heyman continued. I mean, I felt great at 30, but I'm sure there are little things that are starting to add up. So look, would it surprise me if he lived up to that? No, but it would not surprise me if he were sitting here in 2 years and he's still as active as ever. How old is Canelo? 34, 35? How old is Terrence Crawford? 36 going on 37? How old is Alexander Usyk? 37 going on 38?
What's your point?
Gervonta Davis is younger than all those aforementioned fighters, and he has not achieved what they have achieved. So that if at 30 years old, he's not motivated anymore, well, I don't think he ever was. Naoya Inoue is actually 1 year older than Gervonta Davis. He's 31 years old, and you don't hear him talking about how weary he is, how tired, how he wants to just call it a career. And he has achieved more than Gervonta Davis.
So what's he so weary from? Kicking cans down the road? Winning fights that he's supposed to win? Or is it that you want to wrap it up because it's not safe for you anymore? You can feel the walls closing in. You can read the writing on the wall.
You're only going to make but so much money fighting in fights like these. And if it's not for the kind of money that you made with Ryan, you don't want to fight. That money is out there. That money exists. But it will require you to fight a better caliber of fighter than Frank Martin, a better caliber of fighter than Lamont Roach. It's not a lack of motivation.
It's a lack of work ethic. Even though he was groomed by Floyd Mayweather, he never had Floyd's work ethic or Floyd's pride. Because Floyd did pride himself on not just being the biggest draw, but being the best.
Pound for pound, numero uno.
It was a point of pride for Floyd Mayweather that he wasn't just the biggest draw, but that he was the best of his generation. Gervonta doesn't want to prove that. He doesn't have that kind of drive. He never did.
They're talking about him like he's been there and done that and run the gauntlet, climbed the mountaintop. What mountain? It's ridiculous. They're always trying to find ways to disguise that he's not cut from the same cloth as his mentor. He's not cut from the same cloth as his contemporaries, the other fighters who are not just making money and selling out big arenas and stadiums and venues.
They're making history. They're achieving something.
A legacy. Now you tell me, what is his? That if he is now walking away from the sport, I said it before and I'll say it again, that's welcome news to my ears. Finally, in men's super lightweight news, Hitchens says Hitchens-Paro is a one-trick pony. The last time we saw Hitchens in April, he looked vulnerable in a fight against Gustavo Lemos. As many observers believe, he lost the contest. Despite being awarded a split decision win, the last time we saw Hitchens-Paro in June, he looked dominant and scored one of the leading candidates for upset of the year, beating Subriel Matias via UD for the IBF 140-pound title. On Saturday, Paro, 25-0 with 15 KOs, will defend his title for the first time against the mandatory challenger Hitchens, 18-0 with 7 KOs in San Juan, Puerto Rico. An odd sight for the matchup.
Yeah, I still don't get it.
After Liam beat Subriel Matias, he should have got a homecoming fight. This title defense he's about to have, it should have happened in Australia, and Hitchens, if he wanted it, then he should have had to travel.
Think about how many Matchroom fighters got a homecoming fight. Regis Prograis got one as his first fight of his Matchroom deal. So did Subriel Matias.
Jaron Ennis got 2 of them.
Just don't think it's fair that Liam hasn't got one.
So now he's fighting Hitchens, and Hitchens' confidence is still operating at peak levels despite surviving the near scare against Lemos. I know the sport of boxing. Hitchens-Paro is not on my level, Hitchens told Boxing Scene. He beat a guy in Matias who had limited skills, flat feet, and no special effects. A fighter that makes a living off of absorbing and taking punches and wearing guys down. I'm a different type of fighter with a different type of pedigree. I'm not a guy who builds my career from an upset win or careful matchmaking. I have a lot of pedigree from the amateurs to the pros.
And you also have a gift decision over Gustavo Lemos, which is what got you here.
I'm not impressed by him or Matias. Me and Matias are on 2 different levels. He made a living off of having big balls and being durable. I made a living off being a pure, technical boxer. It's different. People are saying I never raised my hand to fight Matias and I ducked him. I never got a contract to fight Matias. I earned my way through the IBF route.
Yeah, but we saw the videos. You didn't want one. You said this and that about the 10-pound rehydration cap via the IBF and how you don't want to fight a guy at less than 100%. When Matias had the belt, you weren't in a hurry to fight him.
So I figure he must see something in Hitchens-Paro that he thinks he can exploit that he didn't see in Matias because he wasn't in a hurry to fight Matias.
So maybe he's smart enough to know that styles make fights. And while Liam might have had the right style for Subriel, he might have the right style for Liam.
Hitchens-Paro, a 28-year-old from Australia, has been building serious momentum over the last 3 years, beating then-undefeated fighters Brock Jarvis and Yomar Alamo, knocking out Montana Love last December. Paro has a good left hand, said Hitchens. That's the shot I have to take away. He's a one-trick pony. When it comes to his offense, I don't see versatility. I don't see sharp, accurate body shots, good uppercuts, and quick hooks. I hope he enjoys his 5 minutes of fame, because he's not on my level. It's going to be a masterclass performance.
Call a spade a spade. If Richardson Hitchens beats Liam this weekend, it is a credible scalp. It is. But it's not going to sit right with me that you wanted to wait until the title changed hands. You didn't want to win it from Subriel because you likely knew that you wouldn't.
You're only piping up like this now that he got beat. This is not how you were talking a couple of months ago.
It's the truth.
And I think that most of us have a basic idea of what we can expect from Richardson Hitchens because he's a pure boxer. And you know what kind of fight a pure boxer likes to fight, whereas Liam, it's a little harder to peg. It's a little harder to know how is he going to approach this guy?
What he has to do.
He has to fight a better version of the fight that Gustavo Lemos fought. It still boggles my mind that they gave the decision to Richardson Hitchens when, to me, he's so obviously lost. So Liam's got to put pressure on him. He does, and he has to fight a better version of that fight.
Volume's the ticket. Combination punching, aggression.
Like what he showed in the Montana Love fight, he's got to show that on Saturday.
And it could be tricky.
Richardson Hitchens is very tall for the weight, very long for the weight, uses his jab, manages distance, so you've got to close it. We've been all through that.
He wants a boxing match. You've got to make it a fight. But can he?
The way that Richardson Hitchens has been piping up ever since this fight got made, and that he even accepted it, communicates to me that he sees something in Liam that at least he thinks he can exploit that he didn't see in Subriel. You're saying this and that about Subriel now that somebody beat him.
But you didn't want it.
And I think the division would be better off if Liam kept his red belt on Saturday than if it changes hands, because if he can get through this last trial, he can return to Australia a hero and bring that audience to the super lightweight division that has since cooled off.
They used to talk about this division as being one of the deeper divisions in all of boxing, but very little news.
Very little intrigue has been coming out of the super lightweight division as of late. I think it would be more conducive towards this division's profile if Liam stays champion, and we'll see if he can.
Hitchens is convinced he's going to beat him.